Hi, my name is Izzy Datu. I use pronouns she, her, hers. I'm a second year in Revelle College.
All right. What is your vision for the future of KP?
For me, I think specifically in terms of board, in terms of like my leadership style, I would want to have more of intimate conversations, whether it be one-on-one with the people on board or pillar by pillar. I do understand that it sounds like a lot in terms of time obligations, but for the person that I am, I like to be able to see what people are doing and also what they're feeling as well. So I feel like in terms of understanding how they are as board members, but more so importantly them as a person as well. I also know that there is that boundary of like professionalism as well as like a friend or like a student. But I think diving down into them seeing me as a resource is first me establishing that I want to be seen as a friend as well, and not just someone in like a professional setting, because I do feel like obviously being in a bigger position, it does kind of seem like intimidating to some people, whether it be like a board member or a general member. I think with that being said, there's also doing my best in terms of making sure board members themselves also don't feel excluded or left out, because I feel like there's also that misconception outside of board in terms of, oh, they're a board member, they definitely have to feel, or don't have to feel, but they already have people established in the space. They won't have to feel lonely. They don't have to experience or won't experience what I'm experiencing. But even with my experience on board and being on board for the past 2 years, I feel like there's also still those moments where I'm like, whoa, I still kind of feel left out or alone. I'm not exactly saying in terms of like support, but just that general sense of feeling left out. So I feel like trying to make sure that or if I were to get the position, trying to ensure that people don't feel that way and that they have not just me, but the other chairs or just anyone else in the space in that board or just all three boards as a whole. I think that also goes in terms of like losing that sense of intimidation that comes with board. I feel like obviously people who are more open to talking or more open to like having those conversations again with people are more likely to, or general members find them more likely to be less intimidating compared to like other members. So I feel like trying to open that up is pretty important. Other than that, I think also more cross collabs with other organizations on campus, whether it be like SAC or also, as mentioned in terms of like orgs that are connected in terms of like the board of directors with spaces is also pretty important. I think whether that be, of course, just reposting or being there myself. I don't want to speak too much because I don't know how much I'm covering, but I'll just keep going. Yeah, I think in terms of me being there and sharing that responsibility, specifically with like SAC and the POCOs, I feel like it's definitely a lot on them, and I would also want to help as well. Like originally thinking about it, I would want there to be more interaction with in Gen board and also the other three boards, but I also feel like there has to be an understanding of course limits, and like I don't want to seem like, oh, she'd be making us do these things when it may not exactly align with what we're doing. So I feel like there's also that understanding of like knowing where to calm down, but obviously the intention with that, if we were to somehow try to implement that some way of some sorts, would just be like obviously educating people in terms of like what that environment is like in terms of like SAC and not board of directors, but SAC orgs and like interactions with that. Yeah, just because I do feel like there's definitely a disconnect in terms of what board members who aren't exactly going to these events may feel, and also just communicating that also with the space as a whole. I feel like there's also that disconnect in terms of like, yes, we may see it or acknowledge it as a board, but what do the members see? I feel like they'll get a very surface level or some type of definition that they'll see on Google, but other than that, what can they really say in terms of like what we as a board or what each respective board has to do and what they have to say in terms of like what SAC is or spaces have to say. Yeah, I'll just stop there.
All right. Sometimes it appears though positions under different pillars have to compete for resources and support. How do you intend to keep a balance and intersectional practice of the pillars?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. Sometimes it appears as though positions under different pillars have to compete for resources and support. How do you intend to keep a balanced and intersectional practice of the pillars?
I think for me, it would be gauging priority of events as well, and as well as, I guess, urgency, for lack of better words, in terms of like what needs to be promoted, and trying to delegate it in that way in terms of like chronological order, in terms of like events that want to be hosted, and urgency in terms of information that needs to be put out. I think that would be the main thing, but also kind of, obviously some people may interpret it as what's the word you said, competing, but I think also trying to defeat that mindset of it seeming like competing, and more so using each other, also lack of better words, but like helping each other out. There you go, helping each other out in terms of sharing those resources. I think changing that mindset is also pretty important, because it doesn't have to be seen as a competition. Like obviously, like even not just within the pillars in Gen, but just all across the KP boards, there's obviously things that are bound to like intersect, and I think being able to share those resources, because obviously someone have a resource that another person may not, and it's not something that has to be like gatekept or anything. It's something that more so should be shared, in terms of like, obviously the end goal of like us being in our positions is to help the people in the space. So obviously like being able to have that resource and to give it out to other people is what's the bigger thing to tackle, or like the main priority.
As an exec, how do you enforce strictness and consequences in the event your fellow board members are not meeting expectations?
I feel like for me, it would definitely be having conversation one-on-one, in terms of how they're feeling. Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, of course. As an exec, how do you enforce strictness and consequences in the event your fellow board members are not meeting expectations?
Okay. Again, just going along with having a one-on-one, I think not so exactly bringing up the issue first, but seeing how they're doing as a person first. Like we always say, human first, and then a student, and then a person of KP. I feel like that's definitely something to hone into. Like even I also have to understand that as well, growing just in the space in general, and also as a college student. But I think having that one-on-one conversation, and if anyone else may be impacted in that, whether it be like their pillar or someone that they're working with, and seeing how they also may feel as well. I think gauging how they're feeling one-on-one is most important. And then, I don't know, I'd say it's definitely a case-by-case scenario, but I definitely try to give as many resources as possible in terms of, I don't know, their well-being, or just seeing how they're okay, or seeing if they're okay. Probably work with health and wellness coordinator in terms of like giving those resources in terms of like being okay first, whether it be like stress or something of that sorts. But if we're more so to be someone not taking it seriously, or yeah, just not taking it seriously, I think first having a conversation again with them one-on-one, and then talking with the other vice chairs would be important, just in terms of gauging what the other vice chairs think as well. I feel like my opinion is important, but also what everyone else has to think as well, because I can be perceiving it one way, but someone else may be perceiving it another way. I think that just gives them that fair chance of like, oh, I may be seen as this way, but there's also that perspective like, oh, they see me as this, or they know that I am going through this. And I think having that bigger, I don't know how to phrase that, like bigger range of people to talk to and who will understand you and listen to you is pretty important in terms of being able to like go about that strictness and boundaries. Yeah.
Alright, many new programs have been started or revived. As chair, you are in charge of overseeing various programs. How do you plan to expand or promote such programs?
May you specify on said programs, or?
Like this year, we tried to do web dev, but also just I'm a modern. So there are things that have died or come back. So how do you plan to expand or promote them?
I think first talking to the people that are interested and passionate about those specific programs is important and seeing how they're feeling. Just because like I know for the dance aspect, everyone has been pretty busy in terms of trying to organize that stuff. So just trying to see how else they want to continue and what they envisioned for it as well. If anything, yeah, I'd say just trying to talk to the upper heads of those specific programs and seeing what they envision for the space. And as well as like if they have a committee, like I know WebDev has a committee. I'm unsure of how prominent Makasama Modern's like committee is in terms of dance, but just communicating with them first and seeing how they want to pursue forward with such programs. Other than those programs, I think there's also like bringing back Rec Direct in terms of like what was it like when you go to the gym together? I forgot what that program was called. But I think that's a really good and relevant program to have, especially because a lot of people in general in this society like to work out and stuff like that. And I know that's also the intention that people have in terms of like health and wellness too, and kind of being able to collaborate in terms of like well-being and being able to have that like physical aspect. I think for me as chair, I know in the Constitution it says something about internship. I'm not exactly sure if I would want to pursue internship exactly, but I think some type of format where I can help educate people in terms of like leadership skills. I'm not exactly sure what format that would be or how I would pursue that exactly, just because I've seen from the past two internship co-coordinators that it's been pretty well developed in terms of like how they're able to manage it. Like obviously it's a large cohort, but I feel like they're able to like deal with being able to educate the internship class in terms of like what needs to be learned about the space and just in general in terms of like them pursuing a board or not. Yeah.
All right, we have about 3 minutes left, but we finished with your questions. Do you have any questions for us?
No.
All right, then your interview is concluded, and thank you.